Okay, so Joe, we have a very special guest today, and welcome Mr. Ryan Jones.
The thinking is that you create zones, station, green zone, yellow zone, red zone. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, the red zone, with IT, if not even being more IT-led than business-led. Another example of this would be sharing limits. I don't need to be publishing this to Facebook or WhatsApp, right? And so what we did is we built a capability called environment routings based on this configuration.
If you're IT trying to adopt agents for your organization, you might have heard of features like environment controls or connector policy, but these features alone doesn't answer these questions for you, like how do you guide your first-time builders? How to decide what is allowed, what is not, and how do you control risks for your system? If you're thinking about those questions, then this episode is for you. Welcome to Agents Under Control, the show where we talk about how IT can take agents from experimentation to scale deployments. Hello everyone, welcome to Agents Under Control. My name is Thomas So, a product marketing manager for Microsoft Copilot Studio. Today, my co-host is Mr. Joe Unwin. Joe, a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, it's so nice to speak with you. My name is Joe Unwin. I work in the IT side of Copilot Studio alongside Thomas, and I'm a senior PMM.
Okay, so Joe, we have a very special guest today. A lot of people consider him the father of the managed platform for Copilot Studio and Power Platform. Please drum roll and welcome Mr. Ryan Jones.
Woo! Thanks so much, Thomas. Hey, everybody. My name's Ryan. I lead Managed Platform, Product and Engineering for Apps Automate and Copilot Studio. And, at the end of the day, our goal is seeing to it that IT has the security, the governance, and the operational controls and tools that they need to make sure that all the apps, agents, and automations built in their organization are secure, they're compliant, and they're always up and running.
All right, welcome to the show, Ryan. We're super excited to have this conversation with you. In a previous episode, Joe and I, we talked about environment controls and environment strategy, but those are just features alone. ITs are maybe still thinking about how to operationalize governance. Where should IT start to implement a mental model to help them operationalize things?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is that AI is helping people across our businesses innovate and create faster than ever. It's meaning that more people can build agents. There are more workflows that exist than ever, that they're able to create those apps or other assets faster than ever. And so we're now in this world where someone can literally create a new agent in minutes. And the thing is, if we look at how in IT we've typically handled security and compliance and operational risk reviews, those processes take weeks or take months. And simply put, that process is collapsing on itself because not every agent that's built carries the same risk. The agent that I build that helps me remember my anniversary is very different from the agent that I build to help with customer support questions on our public website. And so the thing is, our customers need to apply the right controls to different categories of apps, agents, and automations based on the risk that they pose. And they need to implement those controls proactively rather than purely reactively.
That absolutely is true. It adheres to a lot of the questions and stories that we've been hearing from IT. If you only have environments, then agents might show up everywhere, show up in default environment, teams are using environment differently, and IT gets pulled into this constant approval process. So what are some of the other anecdotes they've been hearing about the downfalls of not having a zone governance structure?
Yeah, so we kind of see two extremes. Okay. One is when people don't have a zoned governance strategy in place, as I mentioned earlier, they can't keep up. And so what do? They start disabling the technology. And what that means is that they as a company are then falling behind their competitors from an innovation, from an AI transformation perspective. The other extreme that we see is folks take a completely hands-off approach. And so when they do that, what happens is they end up with, approximately 11 billion different agents and apps and automations but they can't really speak to their overall security posture. They don't know if those assets are compliant. In many cases, they don't know if those apps and agents are even running or not. And so both of those outcomes are completely unacceptable for a modern organization in the age of AI. We can't have unbounded risk, but we also cannot constrain innovation.
Absolutely. And this is consistent with the story that we've been hearing that when IT feel enabled and confident, they become AI agent enablers and not blockers or AI police. Now we talk a little bit about concepts. Let's talk about the implementation, how to make it real, how to actually implement zone governance within the product.
Awesome. And so let me pull up my Power Platform Admin Center. And while I do this, one thing that I would highlight is what we're talking about here. It's not only something that we've observed from our customers, but these patterns have also been thoroughly documented by Gartner and Forrester as well. So, I always tell my customers, you don't have to take my word for it, okay? Please go read not only the resources that we provide, but go listen to the brightest minds in the industry because they kind of have the same perspective. So do we want to dig into the experience here?
Let's go.
For sure. I just have one question then. So let's say I'm a user, I'm an IT person, and I hear about zone governance for the first time. Can you kind of give us an overview of exactly what zone governance is? I see like you've got green zone here. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the thinking is that you create zones based on predefined risk patterns. Okay. And so we use a stoplight analogy, usually just for simplification: green zone, yellow zone, red zone. Okay. The green zone is really intended to be a fully self-service zone where anybody who has an idea can come to Copilot Studio, Power Apps, Power Automate, and can start creating that idea. Now, the thing is, because it's completely self-service, that means that we need to disable some capabilities of the product, right? Because something that's fully self-service, like you probably shouldn't have a random employee on a random Tuesday go through and build an agent that's published on your public website, right?
Mhm.
So green zone, fully self-service, zero friction. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, the red zone, those agents that are publicly available, those agents that touch extremely sensitive systems of record. Those sorts of things are great candidates for the red zone where they're not fully self-service. In fact, those applications and agents are built in deep partnership with IT, if not even being more IT led than business led. And then in the middle, we have the yellow zone. And I would say, each of these zones, what they look like varies from one customer to the next. In fact, we even see that at some of our largest customers, they may actually have multiple green zones because the shape of a green zone for someone in HR may be fundamentally different than what the green zone looks like for someone who's in legal or finance.
Oh, interesting. So, is this kind of so? I guess the green zone then is where personal environments kind of come into play.
That's exactly right. And so I tell you what I can do is instead of talking about it in the abstract, let's just go and show you. So here you can see I'm within the environment groups experience within the Power Platform Admin Center. And environment groups generally map to these zones that we're talking about. And so here you can see that I have a green zone. I can see, the various environments that live in that zone. That's not really the interesting part today. But then I can also drill into the rules within that environment group as well. And these are policies that, define what things I can and cannot do within the green zone. And some very common examples of these would be things like advanced connector policies. One of the most common controls that people need to implement is, hey, as people build these agents and automations and apps, what data sources can people connect to? Because people don't want, for example, an agent to connect to both SAP and Facebook or X. right? And so this
For
allows
sure.
me to very quickly, say, hey, you can or cannot connect to these different data services. And a lot of times in the green zone, what we see is organizations constrain the green zone to Microsoft 365 data sources, perhaps a few data sources in Azure, or a few core systems of record within the organization. Another example of this would be sharing limits. Because the thing that we see is that the risk of any agent that's been built is directly proportional to how broadly it has been shared within an organization, right? An agent that just I use myself, or maybe that Thomas and I use, it's a lower risk agent than one that's been shared within the entire or across the entire company. And so here we provide the ability for admins to again limit sharing across every environment that's within that environment group. Even beyond that, we can allow you to do things like limit where agents can be published, like we talked about earlier. If this is a personal productivity agent, if this is something that I'm building largely for myself, I don't need to be publishing this to Facebook or WhatsApp, right? Um, and so, again, we're able to kind of stamp all of these different controls onto the environment. And an important note is that these policies or rules, once they're stamped on the environment, they cannot be overwritten, even by an environment admin. Now, we have this great zone now where people can come in and start creating. However, there's this interesting question like, if I'm in accounting, I probably don't know what an environment is, let alone a zone. And so what we did is we built a capability called environment routing so that when a maker comes to Copilot Studio or Power Apps or Power Automate for the very first time, we will automatically route them into the right zone. And we're able to route them into the right zone based on their security group membership. And so here you can see that we're able to route a number of different groups into different zones based on this configuration. So, hope that makes sense, Joe.
It does. And I think it's really exciting for IT because it's allowing an autonomous process to happen and you to actually guide users to where they need to be rather than manually having to go do it individually for every single person. It's going to save so much time and effort for those individuals.
I think that's spot on, Joe. Like at Microsoft, we have 200,000 something employees, and just about that many use Power Platform. We have 180,000 environments within Microsoft. Most of those are personal or development environments within the green zone. And the thing is, we only have 5 people at Microsoft that oversee all of Copilot Studio, Power Apps, and Power Automate. That would be impossible if it wasn't for the fact that we take a zoned governance strategy, we implement that zoned governance strategy through environment groups and environment rules, and we route all of our makers into personal development environments using environment routing.
Wow. If that's not efficiency, I don't know what is.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for walking us through this. We'll link more resource about zone governance, the introduction, the implementational guide in the show notes, and thank you for walking us through the demo.
You're most welcome, guys. Thanks so much. Take care and have a good one.
We actually have another special guest today for our Industry Voice section, and that is Bulent, Microsoft MVP, and who has been implementing agent governance for his customers for a long time. Welcome to the show, Bulent. Maybe a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my friend. Thank you very much for the invite. My name is Bülent Altenstoy. I live here in Germany, based here in Hanover, and I'm a Copilot Studio MVP and happy to be here.
Well, thank you, Bulent, for coming to the show. In this episode, we talked about zone governance and then how to make environment strategy real. You're the master of this topic. So tell us, how do you bring this topic to your customers to make it real for them?
So, zone concept means you have a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. The green zone is the one where you can let your business users experiment, learn how to build agents and so on, and collect their first experiences. So the yellow zone in that case is different. The yellow zone is more a team play. So that means you want to share it with a team or with a department. So you also get a little bit more connectors, for Confluence, for example, Jira, other connectors to get information to your agent. And you can also use the environments dev, int, and prod there as well, hand in hand going. And the red zone is more for mission critical agent in that case. That means that agents you're putting on your website, for example, and they shall not expose any data. And if you're not experienced enough, you can put a lot of knowledge sources or maybe connectors into your agent because you think that's very cool. But then suddenly via prompt injection, if it's then, for example, an autonomous agent, people can extract data without that you knowing that. And that can be very bad. And this is handled in the red zone. And only in red zone, only experienced people should do this. And that's why the zone concept is something crucial and essential to be implemented in every company.
Well, thank you very much, Julian, for coming to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you want more content about how IT can take agents from experimentation to scale deployment, follow the YouTube channel, or we'll come back with more.